You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of truth. A dimension of freedom. A dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the Capitalist Corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the Capitalist Corner.
Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Capitalist Corner. I'm your host, Michael Liebowitz. Looking forward to a great week of discussions with all of you. Mark Pellegrino couldn't make it today because he's a little tired. So when he gets a little tired, he gets cranky. He can't join. I've got a great episode right now out of the Capitalist Corner. I had a debate with a guy named Radical Capitalist. No, I don't know his real name, so I couldn't tell you even if I wanted to. We debated the nature of individual rights. That episode is up right now. I highly encourage you to check it out. Tomorrow, by the way, we're having a special additional episode after the first episode, and I will be interviewing constitutional law expert Ilya Soman. We will be discussing the constitutional powers regarding war and who they belong to. We're, of course, going to apply it to the current situation. So there is a lot going on. And let me just say off the bat, when it comes to the war in Iran, I am not capable of discussing tactics, strategy of war, whether the war is going wonderfully, whether it's going terribly. I can't do it. I don't have the knowledge. I have zero doubt that the United States military could utterly destroy that country if they wanted to, that was the objective. I just doubt very much that our leadership is willing to do what it takes to win a war. I just wanted to go over some things. So the first thing I want to share is this clip with Donald Trump with people that once criticized him. Let me just show you this.
Whatever he does, he accuses everyone else of doing. The man cannot tell the truth, but he combines it with being a narcissist. A narcissist at a level I don't think this country's ever seen.
And my concern is that he would grab up that power and really treat the country as sort of his little bully fiefdom.
Donald Trump is everything I taught my children not to do in kindergarten.
He's been exploiting working Americans for 40 years.
He's a race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot.
He says he's for the little guy, but he's actually built a lot of his businesses on the backs of the little guy.
You know, Donald Trump the other day said that, it, quote, if he tells a soldier to commit a war crime, the soldier will just go do it.
And I don't think Donald Trump has even read the Constitution, knows what's in the Constitution.
A toxic mix of demagoguery and mean-spiritedness and nonsense.
I just cannot support Donald Trump.
Donald Trump is a delusional narcissist and an orange-faced windbag.
Donald Trump is a con artist.
He doesn't know the difference between truth and lies. He lies practically every word that comes out of his mouth.
I think he's a kook. I think he's crazy. I think he's unfit for office.
All right, so not all of them are currently Trump sycophants, but I will include amongst the Trump sycophants, and you are, of course, free to add. And by the way, don't forget the super chats and super stickers. They're very much encouraged and very much appreciated. So Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Glenn Beck, Lindsey Graham, huge Trump sycophants at this point in time. So the question for me arises, were they lying then? Are they lying now? Was their judgment just terrible then? Or is their judgment terrible now? So if they were lying then we can't believe them now. That's for sure. And if their judgment was terrible then why would we trust their judgment now? It was only 10 years ago, and there's been no great change in Trump's behavior that would justify the big turnaround. I mean, Glenn Beck referred to Trump as a Hitler. I remember he used to call Trump supporters brown shirts. These are the brown shirts. This is the French Revolution. This is not the American Revolution, that sort of thing. Interesting that, once he got elected president, give it a little time, and now they're all just on board with him. It doesn't seem a coincidence. I think they're lying. I think they're dishonest, and I think they know exactly what he is. So I'm just going to go through a few of the things that Trump has been saying. I'm going to start with his comments he made on Truth Social about the Supreme Court. He says, "The decision that mattered most to me was tariffs. The court knew where I stood, how badly I wanted this victory for our country, and instead decided to potentially give away trillions of dollars to countries and companies who have been taking advantage of the United States for decades. Our Supreme Court has made these countries very happy, but as the court pointed out, I have the absolute right to charge tariffs in another form." Okay, whatever. He can think whatever he wants. That's not really my point. So here's the problem. The court knew where I stood and how badly I wanted the victory for our country. That's totally irrelevant. But Trump thinks that they're relevant. Trump thinks it matters, that it's important to him. The court should have known this. No, the court's not supposed to cater to you, Trump. The court is supposed to interpret the law and interpret the Constitution, not cater to your juvenile whims that you have, right? So that was the first thing that I wanted to address, is this idea with Trump that the Supreme Court ought to be doing his bidding, much like he thinks the Justice Department should be doing his bidding. Remember, he said, in his last term, "Where's my Roy Cohn?" Roy Cohn, of course, is both Trump's mentor and was the defender of Joseph McCarthy. So, I told you that I'm not really equipped to talk strategy when it comes to war. I don't know how well or, how bad it's going. But I do know that there's certain things that tend to get repeated during wartime. And one of these things is suppression of things like free speech. Right? So Carr, the head of the FCC, warned on Saturday that broadcasters airing, quote, hoaxes and news distortions should, quote, correct course before their license renewals come up or risk losing their licenses. The quote ended, and then the story continues. This is the latest in a series of administrative threats against media outlets over their coverage of the war in Iran. Carr's tweet came in reply to a Truth Social post from Trump that accused the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and other publications of running intentionally misleading headlines about Iranian missile strikes on 5 U.S. refueling tankers at Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. Okay, so you're now threatening the media. They can't post what they call hoaxes. When does it come down to citizens won't be able to criticize? Now, here's a very important thing that I want people to pay special attention to. Where are you going to turn? If they do that, now here's the thing. The claim will be, well, they didn't pass any laws. It's just threatening. Read Half Gun Will Nudge by Ayn Rand. Threats from the federal government have a dimming effect. They have a suppression effect because people know what could come, so they alter their behavior accordingly. But for all my friends who have said that the Constitution is just not relevant because the war is so important, well, what do you say to this? When Trump is, when they're obviously in violation of the First Amendment, you can't appeal to the First Amendment. Sorry, no. Once you have said the Constitution doesn't matter, you've discounted it. Like Leonard Peikoff states in OPAR, once you've gone contrary to your principles, you've thrown out the principle as a guide. The Constitution is now off limits to you. You've said it doesn't matter. So how do you fight then? How do you say, oh, no, this time it matters. This time it does. The First Amendment, no, that matters. We want our free speech. What's going to happen? Fuck you, they're going to tell you. Because you've already okayed it. You've already said that the goals of this war are so important that they justify throwing the Constitution out. So now when they're going to do it again, what are you going to say? And when they do it again, because they will, what are you going to say? You've thrown it out. You've thrown it out. I do thrive on I told you so's, Akira, but it's bigger than that. It really is. It's a demonstration of the importance of principle, that we have to act on principle, because that is our best defense. If we want a free country, if we want a country based on individual rights, we have to advocate such on principle, not only when it's convenient. We can't throw these things out because we want to fight the left. We can't throw these things out because we want to fight Iran. We must follow our principles. And by the way, following principle is not putting considerations above reality. It's the insistence that we adhere to reality. If our principles are derived from reality, we must follow them, not abandon them when it is, again, convenient. So this is what they were talking about in that article. Trump on Truth Social said, Iran has long been known as a master of media manipulation and public relations. They are militarily ineffective and weak, but are really good at feeding, quote unquote, the very appreciative fake news media false information. Now, AI has become another disinformation weapon that Iran uses quite well, considering they are being annihilated by the day. They showed phony, quote-unquote, kamikaze boats shooting at various ships at sea, which looks wonderful, powerful, and vicious, but these boats don't exist. It's all false information to show how tough their already defeated military is. The 5 U.S. refueling planes that were supposedly struck down and badly damaged, according to the Wall Street Journal's false reporting, and others are all in service, with the exception of one, which will soon be flying the skies. Buildings and ships that are shown to be on fire or not, it's fake news generated by AI. Okay, here's the problem. First of all, no mainstream media outlets did what Trump said. None reported that these planes were destroyed. None reported that. What was reported is that they were hit at Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. They were. That's the truth. So Trump is upset with the media for telling the truth. And he's basically saying they're colluding with Iran, or they're getting fake news from Iran. So this now is going to justify, where is it here? He says, you can say that those media outlets that generated it should be brought up on charges for treason, for the dissemination of false information. You're going to bring the media up on treason. The penalty for treason is death. It's death. So are you telling me that when the President of the United States says that, that doesn't have a chilling effect on the media? Now, the media, of course, can get things wrong. Anybody can get things wrong, right? So what do? If they've got a story, they've fact-checked it, they've done everything. But what if it turns out to be wrong? Are they subject to being hanged or put in front of a firing squad? Is that appropriate in the United States of America? In the United States of America, what the fuck are we fighting for if it's not for the United States of America and the principles upon which it was founded? What is the point of going and fighting a war in self-defense if we are just going to turn into this, where the President of the United States is threatening media companies because they're reporting news basically that he does not like? Because the 5 planes were hit. It did happen. They were damaged. Now, you get into damage severely. One person severely is another person's not severely. Nobody just said that they were destroyed. Nobody said that they couldn't go up again. But that is what Trump is saying. So then there's this. Let's see some other stuff that we've got here from the Trumpster.
You could make the case that maybe we shouldn't even be there at all because we don't need it. We have a lot of oil. We're the number one. To louse it up. So we need. We are demanding that these countries come in and protect their own territory because it is their territory. It's a place from which they get their energy, and they should come and they should help us protect it. You could
The President of the United States, who is currently the commander-in-chief of a military at war, just said it could be argued that we shouldn't even be there. Now, let's give him the most generous possible interpretation of what that means. Is he saying that we shouldn't be there protecting? It's debatable whether we should be there protecting the Straits of Hormuz. If that's what he's saying, well, first of all, that's not very smart from what I understand. But secondly, if it's debatable, maybe don't do it without making the case. Right? How would you feel if you're in the military and you're sent into a zone where you could be killed and your commander-in-chief is saying, well, it's arguable we shouldn't even be there. Right? It's arguable we should not even be there, is being touted by the President of the United States. Now, we could broaden it. Maybe he's referring to Iran as a whole. I don't know. But even under the most generous interpretation, there are military personnel who are going to be at the Straits of Hormuz. And their president just said it's arguable that we shouldn't even be there. And by the way, Trump wants all these other countries to go there and help clean up the mess that he made after, by the way, he's been telling them for years how much they suck, how awful they are, how they're ripping us off, how we got to put tariffs on them, how they're not doing their fair share. And now he's in a jam and he wants help. Meanwhile, he lifted sanctions on Putin, on the oil, and said Zelensky over there is the biggest obstacle to peace. This is your commander-in-chief. This is the guy who's in charge of the fucking war effort, people. All right, we got one more clip from the Trumpster.
250,000 people, the supposed rally was. It's incredible. And I just wonder, like, Jeff, do you know that these are fake stories? Did you know that the rally of 250,000 people, the supposed rally was fake? Did you know? Because you reported on it. You wrote about it. You talked about it. And you know it was fake. It was AI generated. You know. Anybody that knew the country knew there's not 250,000 people willing to stand in a circle and say how great Khomeini is. Are you unhappy?
Okay, so first of all, there was no mainstream media reporting, as far as I could find this morning, that reported that there was a rally of 250,000 people rallying for Khomeini. So that off the bat, not true. Now, notice, the reporter that Trump is saying this to doesn't stand up for himself, doesn't fight back, doesn't say anything. Why not? Could it be that they're already having a chilling effect with their threats to the media? Could it be that he knows that because of what Trump's done in the past, that he's going to lose access if he pushes back on that? So it's absolutely true that there were rallies in favor of the new leader of Iran. It's also true that a lot of this is state mandated shit, so I wouldn't put much stock in it. But nevertheless, it's true. It did happen. There's also protest against the regime. That's happening. But Trump says that it's AI generated fake news about a story that nobody reported, 250,000 people, and doesn't address the fact that, yes, there actually were celebrations. And meanwhile, he's calling a reporter a liar. After we already know that the head of the FCC is threatening the media with license revocations, and Trump is saying that maybe they should be tried for treason. So you should be tried for treason. And the two examples that he gives is that they're lying about airplanes getting hit that they're not lying about, and that they're lying about a rally that they're not lying about, but they should face charges for treason, which the penalty is death. And this is your commander-in-chief. And yet I'm told that I shouldn't worry about the character of the guy who's sending our military into harm's way. The same guy who says it's arguable whether we should even be there. But I'm not supposed to be concerned. And when he has a dimming effect on free speech, I guess we can't cite the Constitution anymore because, well, that's just the opinions of other guys, and I shouldn't put their opinions above reality. I need to focus only on reality. Reality, of course, divorced from the concretes that make it up, is what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to isolate my focus on the one thing that I actually approve of, to the obliteration of the entire context and everything else, and then I'm going to come up with my opinion, which must be support for the war, because Iran has to go, and that's the only factor that needs to be taken into consideration. No, sorry, not that guy. Not that guy. The United States Constitution is relevant, and it's relevant not because it's words on paper. It's relevant because specifically the parts that we are referencing here are the principles that are necessary for a free society to function. Separation of powers, checks and balances, rule of law. Without them, you have dick. Nothing. Right? So let's see. We violated the Constitution. The president's still violating the Constitution by threatening the media. Oh, well, I mean, we're hitting Iran. Of course, Trump is saying he'll know when the war is over when he feels it. That's how he's going to decide we've had victory. He feels it. Now, I don't know, but I think I read somewhere that emotions are not tools of cognition. Anybody know where that could be? Does anybody have any idea where I might have read that? That emotions are not tools of cognition? But yet, the commander-in-chief of the armed fucking forces is said he knows that when the war is going to be over because he feels it. He's going to know when he feels it. Okay, so forget the war powers. Let Trump go to war. That's fine. Let him threaten reporters. Let him violate free speech. I guess that's okay too. We're going to know when we've won the war because Trump's going to feel it, even though he says we've already won. He's also said, by the way, that Iran is ready to deal on an end to the war, which they say is not true. So we have the lying Iranians and the lying President Trump. How do we know which to believe? And by the way, to me, this is vital. Because we as Americans need to understand what's going on. We can't know what's going on because the President of the United States does not care about truth. Ted Cruz was right. So anything that Trump tells us, we have to doubt. Anything that is the lying sycophants that he surrounds himself with, say, we have to doubt. So how are we ever going to know what's really happening? Well, the media is going to tell us, right? The media can report on it, but a lot of that's based on the access they have to Trump, which they may not get if they go negative to him. And now they're being threatened with treason. So maybe, I'm speculating, but I'm thinking that when you are threatened with death, that might have an impact on what you're willing to report. So there you go. Are there any questions? Audience, anything from the audience on this or any statements? Anybody want to say anything? No? Well, that's kind of surprising. Akira Felix says, the problem is with the people who just changed their minds after the war started. They've been calling Trump Hitler and somehow they entrust him to go to war. I agree. I don't know. It's better to speculate than never. Robert Naser is freaking awesome. Steve has game. 4D chess involves looking past Trump and asking who's next. If we don't start now, we'll get another lame duck in the next cycle. What? What do you mean 4D chess? How we got to play 4D chess? We're going to get another lame duck in the next cycle. I don't know, guy. I mean, please elaborate on that. Because it seems to me that 4D chess, let's just stick to regular 3D, because the 4D chess has got everything out of whack. Nobody knows what the hell's going on with 4D chess. So let's just stay with the 3D level, the level at which we live, the 3D chess, right? Okay. The main piece on this chessboard is the United States Constitution, right? That's the main political piece. That's the document that's supposed to be protecting us from abusive government. We've already strayed from that. Now, Trump, by no means is Trump the first. I'm not, please. I don't think that Trump is the first, not even close. I bitched about it when Obama did it. I bitched about it when Trump's done it before. I'll bitch about it when the next guy does it. Because make no mistake, they'll keep doing it. Until we, the people, put a stop to it. Robert Nacer says it's really down to dystopianism, aka the malevolent universe premise, and pragmatism. What can you do when you have to deal with people? It seems like those are the choices, Robert, but I would say there's a third option. There's the third option of being the happy warrior who absolutely fights for objective principles, who sticks to principles regardless of what people say, do, or think, that understands that reason is our means to survival and our only means of knowledge, who understands that objective morality is judged by what's in each of our own best interest. And to understand that when you've set up a country, that country, if it's going to protect your own interest, has to be governed by objective laws, not vigilantes, and not whim worshippers. That's what we need. Akira Felix says, do you think objectivists are supporting the war because of Peikoff's article? Do you think they wouldn't do it if Peikoff had fact-checked himself? I don't know, Akira, the answer to that question. I suspect that there are people out there who their view of Iran largely comes from the Ayn Rand Institute. I haven't delved into all of their stuff to know, I haven't fact-checked them. They might be right on point about everything. I don't know. But I do think that that's a thing. And given the amount of people that have told me I need to read Leonard's articles, I'm going to guess that some people are highly influenced by those articles. Would they do it if he had fact-checked himself? I don't know. Ian Gilmore, remember Andy Bernstein claiming this is the free speech president? Yes, it, of course, is not true. He's not the free speech president. Robert Nacer says, truth, principles are practical. To the extent we are pragmatic, we will fail. And if that's not obvious in the short term, it will be in the long term. Thank you, Robert Nacer. You speak the truth, sir. Steve Has Game says, who can we start exposing as the next best candidate? The more we focus on Trump, the less we start supporting a better candidate. I mean, I don't know, J.D. Vance, Mr. My ancestors are all buried in the cemetery, Mr. I'm influenced by Patrick Deneen, who says that the Enlightenment, it was a mistake, that Enlightenment, liberalism, and individualism are mistakes. That's who influenced J.D. Vance, the anti-capitalist, Patrick Deneen. We can expose that. We also know that J.D. Vance lied and said, well, they're eating the cats and the dogs, and then said, well, we got your attention with it, didn't we? As if that's what matters. We could go with Marco Rubio, who's done an about-face on all kinds of things in order to support Trump. He's another possible candidate. So, I mean, I don't know. We can look to the left at, your caricature of a politician, Gavin Newsom, or the other, either big government Democrats or outright, socialist Democrats. We could expose them. But what we need to know is who we should promote as candidates. Who would make a good candidate? The best out there now, in my view, is the same that was the best out there in 2016. I think it's Rand Paul. I don't think he's perfect. I think he's got a lot of flaws, but I think he's better than anybody else that I've seen. Now, of course, somebody else might come around. Another issue regarding reporters is the overall erosion of adversarial norms in journalism, from Nicole Hingle. I don't know what you mean by adversarial norms. I do know this. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with what's going on with Mark Levin and, the Candace Owens and Tucker Carlsons of the world. He's got quite the beef. So I can't stand Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens. That doesn't make Mark Levin a good guy. By the way, another one who liked Trump, then hated Trump when he was supporting Ted Cruz, and now is back to defending Trump's every move. So Trump put out this big laudful support of Mark Levin. Oh, you're so wonderful. Mark Levin is great. Anybody who's opposed to Mark Levin is opposed to MAGA. Okay, so just think of the message now. When you support Trump, you get incessant praise on social media. When you go against Trump, you get threatened with being charged for treason. Sure, that's reasonable. That's a good policy for the president. Keep defending him. All you folks out there who defend him. Keep defending him. Nicole's going to explain later. She has to work. Oh, okay. Thank you, Nicole. Robert Nacer says one of Dr. B's huge mistakes. He sees, I think he's talking about Andy, he sees the left as monolithic. Yes. As Gary Menard put it last night during 5 Minutes, Andy sees Steve and Mallory's drooling beast in every Obama voting soccer mom. Nice point. I have to agree. Andy treats the left as if they're monolithic, and takes the bad components of the right and just, puts them off to a side and says, no, but the right has good points. I don't disagree with that. I think it's a good point. So I guess I'll move on. Akira Felix says Rand Paul is the last Republican. He's not into the whole blowback theory. So he was never into Ron Paul. It's more possible to change the Democratic Party than to save the GOP. I got to disagree with you. I don't think either's possible. I thought for a long, long time that the Republican Party, it could be done. The Democrats, by and large, are so hostile to capitalism, to freedom, that I don't see it as viable. Not even a little bit. I mean, they just don't get it. They don't like freedom. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, the Republicans used to at least give lip service to it. The Democrats don't even do that. So there was an article, let me see if I can find it here, about the Starbucks CEO, Howard Schultz, who, amidst a wealth tax in Washington State, where he was living, is moving now to Florida. And evidently, this is a thing. I mean, a lot of people are doing this. So the author that I'm reading, he cites this guy, Hirschman. So I said to myself, okay, well, who's this guy Hirschman? I better look at him. So I found his PhD thesis. I read a lot of it, not the whole thing. It's 67 pages. I just got it this morning. But I did read quite a bit. So it's based on two things, exit and voice. So let me just break this down for you. When faced with something you don't like, say you go to a company, $2. Thank you, Robert Nacer, for the $2. Capitalism for the win. Abso-freaking-lutely. So, now what the hell was I talking about? I get so excited about money, I forget what's going on in my life. Oh, yeah. Exit and voice. So basically, if you are going, say you shop at, I don't know, let's say Liebowitz's Spicy Foods, and you shop there and you're dissatisfied with the service. The service, let's say, has deteriorated. So you can either come to me and bitch about it, or go to the staff and bitch and complain, or you could just leave and go someplace else. So exit and voice. The exit strategy is more associated with economics. The voice is another super sticker. I think Robert's trying to distract me. Thank you, Robert. Thank you very much. $1.99. Nice. So the voice is associated with the political means. Basically you complain to your legislature, that sort of thing. And exit is more associated with economics. Why is this relevant? So if you live in a state like Washington State, and they want to tax you to death, you can complain and say, vote and that sort of thing, or you can get up and leave. Evidently, this Howard Schultz has opted to get up and leave. Now, what makes this interesting is, in the United States with federalism, you can get up and leave pretty easily. I mean, relative to other countries where if you want to leave New Zealand, where they talked about, I guess, the former leader of New Zealand, was it the former leader? Find that out for me, Persephone. I think it was the leader of New Zealand has left the country to go live elsewhere. But, you got to get a passport, all kinds of, things to move. But in the United States, I can go from Seattle to Florida, like this, if I can afford it. And if you are, Howard Schultz, you can do whatever, basically whatever you want. Jim Valiant says, so we're stuck with the choice between Deneen collectivist and Mondani collectivist. Oh, and have a nice day. No, we also have Liebowitz, Capitalist Party of American Capitalist Party that we have, Jim. So that's what we got to build up. We need to build a movement that's pro-freedom, pro-individualism. And by the way, a movement that allows for disagreement. about issues. If we simply say, okay, we agree on the same principles, but every time you disagree with me on a particular policy, fuck off, we're going to lose. There has to be allowance for people like me and people like Jim Valiant. We disagree on the application of principle to some issues, like, for instance, the war in Iran. But we're still friends. We're still fighting for the same thing. We can disagree and still fight for the same thing. That has to be part of it. When you're having a movement, you can't just disavow everybody who dares to disagree with you. Jim says, "Amen, brother." Robert says, "When is Liebowitz Spicy Foods coming to Motown? I hear building rents downtown are cheap, cheap, cheap." Leibowitz's Spicy Foods is going to be huge, Robert. Huge. Former New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern and her family have reportedly emigrated from New Zealand amid a broader trend of citizens leaving due to high cost of living, according to reports. So that would be an example of exit. California, evidently, has had net emigration, people leaving the country, of 200,000 people. Texas is getting people. California is losing people. The point is when you tax billionaires, they leave. I'm not going to put this down as an iron law like it always happens in every case, but it does happen. And it happens enough to make a difference. So now we could point out the irony of the liberal Howard Schultz, his progressive hypocrisy of not staying in the place that's taxing him to death. But, let's not do that. Okay, let's see. Let's get some questions. Ian Gilmore says, "I'm curious what you thought of the replies to your Facebook post about election fraud." Look, a guy I know said, "Did you watch 2,000 Mules?" Now, this same guy, like 2.5 years ago, sent me a link to 2,000 Mules. I couldn't watch it because I didn't have the app. I was fresh out of the can. I didn't even know how to use these things. But what I did was I looked it up. I've heard people advocating for it, the Trump supporters over and over and over and over again. I've also read the critiques of it. I know that Dinesh D'Souza was sued for libel over it and lost, and I believe apologized. And I also know, look, 15 to 20 investigations that said there was no fraud that would have cost Trump the election. One of the investigations was done by Trump's own Justice Department. Another investigation was done by Trump's own private investigator, Block. I can't remember his first name now, but Ken Block. They found, his private investigator found nothing, no fraud. 30 lawsuits heard on the merits, found nothing. And Steve Bannon, before the election, saying Trump was going to claim that the election was stolen, even though it wasn't. And of course, Trump's history of always saying that things are rigged against him. But they have this, they have their claims that are totally debunked every time they're brought up, and they have 2,000 Mules. You can't, if somebody is hell-bent on believing it, a guy told me on Twitter, well, unfortunately, it doesn't matter how much stuff you post because I saw it with my own eyes. What do you say to that? You didn't see it with your own eyes. Sorry. That's not true. You didn't. You may believe it, but no, it's not accurate. You did not see that with your own eyes because it did not occur. So, yeah, if people are going to believe that, I was very happy in my debate with Andy that Andy did not claim that the election was stolen. I was very, very happy with that he didn't go down that road, at least. But I will say this, if you dig into things a little bit, the comments about me, like this should be a hint, right? The people that are on Andy's page, Facebook page, I can't see most of them because I've blocked them because they're just dicks. But one said, due to my tattoos, I have mental illness, or I might have mental illness because I have tattoos. Another one said, if I want to be taken seriously, remove my Al Capone tattoo that I've had since I was 20 and quite frankly can't afford to have removed. The same guy, William Swig, who was the easiest debate opponent I've ever had, William Swig, claimed that he destroyed me. Another guy, Joe Sanders, said that I wanted to debate him, but he refused because I'm insufferable, but he would have destroyed me on every point. Other people, Jailbird Liebowitz, another one, with people like this representing objectivism, which I don't claim to do. It's still early. This is the mindset. They name call. They're very similar to Trump, a lot of them. That would be a hint to me. Something's amiss here. Like, why does the sewer follow Trump? Why do the people that act like this support Trump? Over and over and over and over and over again. He did see the magician make the bunny disappear with his own eyes. Let's see. Justin Amash was okay, but he lost last time he ran. Let me ask you this, Persephone. If I bring you up here, you got any questions for me? Okay, we're going to bring Persephone up. She's got some questions.
That's the exact opposite of what I said, but okay. Michael just brought me on so he could cough.
No, I'm hoping you have some good questions.
Well,
you've read a whole ton of stuff, so you must.
I skimmed most of it. I'm not gonna lie. Yes, I thought.
Are you picking up Mark's bad habits?
I thought Mark was gonna be here today, so I was like, I don't need to read these too in depth, and so I skimmed most of them.
All right, Persephone. That's it then.
That's all I have to say. Life is scary.
What
did you?
Seth is questioning her life choices up to this point. What did I what?
What did you think of that letter that the UAE business people wrote to Trump?
I didn't read that, so I don't know.
Oh, well, you should probably read that because I thought it was really interesting.
So the stuff that I actually send, we don't read, but then you asked me about something that I haven't read. Nice.
Well, I
Nice.
thought you might have read it. Because
In addition to probably the 60 pages, 50 plus pages I read this morning, I had to read the article that I didn't send.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound right to me. Something's not right somewhere.
Sorry. No, please don't say things like that, Akira. We don't want that. That was on my mind, the whole businessmen. They criticized him. Basically, they sent him a letter and they said, "Who gave you the authority to drag our region into a war with Iran? You've placed the countries of the Gulf Cooperation Council and the Arab countries at the heart of a danger they did not choose." There's quite an interesting letter that they wrote to him.
Okay, can I speak and say something about them?
No.
Screw them. I don't like really. I really don't care about their business interests. That's not my thinking when whether we should go to war or not. They're how dare you? Are they sending letters to the Iranian government? How dare you sponsor terrorism? How dare you support Hamas and Hezbollah? How dare you chant death to America and death to Israel? No, they're sending it to Trump. You know why? Because they view America as civilized and the Iranians are not, and they want to play on that to try to guilt somebody. So screw them.
You should read the whole letter. It's very interesting. It'll get your blood up.
Why do I want to get my blood up?
Your blood's already up. Like it's obvious.
You didn't even compliment me on my haircut.
Your hair does look a lot shorter.
No, but I was expecting maybe a Mike. You look especially handsome. Something. I get nothing.
You do look especially handsome today.
Okay.
I also got a great photo of you the other day.
Yeah?
Yeah, which I think you should definitely make your profile picture.
I'm going to send you a picture, but you can't post it, but you're going to laugh, okay? Let me do this. I think you'll get a good kick out of this one. One of the things that this guy in the article talked about in his PhD thesis about exit and voice, that I found very, very, very interesting. He talked about that basically that economic growth sows the seeds to basically laziness. I don't know how else to put it. He didn't use those words, but the argument basically is, let me just find it and I'll read it, and then that'd be better than me yapping. Okay, he says that the reasons for which humans have failed to develop a finely built social process assuring continuity and steady quality in leadership is probably that they did not have to. Most human societies are marked by the existence of a surplus above subsistence. The counterpart of this surplus is society's ability to take considerable deterioration in its stride. A lower level of performance, which would mean disaster for baboons, merely causes discomfort, at least initially, to humans. The wide latitude human societies have for deterioration is the inevitable counterpart of man's increasing productivity and control over his environment. Occasional decline as well as prolonged mediocrity in relation to achievable performance levels must be counted among the many, many penalties of progress. I think that there's some truth to that, Persephone. I think that there is definitely some truth to the idea that people don't really need to pay attention. You don't need to really understand what's going on because, you've got your Xbox or whatever. I don't even know if those are a thing anymore, but you got your iPhone, you've got your automobile, your big screen TV, you're fed. So you don't really have to pay attention to all the infringements on liberty that are taking place. So I do think there's something to that. Do you like the picture? You're supposed to be looking out. I tell you, there's a picture coming. I did this with AI.
And you're seriously telling me I can't post that anyway?
You can't. No, because I didn't get permission. So let me just, Robert Naser says, I don't understand why Michael bothers to be contentious with Persephone. I mean, listen to her accent. That's true. Mark and Michael should, in all instances, defer to her based on her superior accent alone. No.
Yes. I agree.
No.
I agree. I agree, Robert. You're very
so
smart,
Enric, whose birthday it is, by the way, happy birthday, Enric, says assigning cause to the environment. No, I don't view it that way, Enric. But I do think that we all make choices in a context. That there are tendencies that, for instance, rewarded behavior tends to be repeated, punished behavior tends to be reduced. I mean, that's the nature of human beings. It's not a deterministic saying it has to be this way. But it is true that, there's a tendency. I mean, I could talk about myself, for instance. I'd like to get down to 170 pounds. Right now I'm at 175. Whenever I get down to 175 or so, I say, oh, well, it's okay to have a cake. I mean, how high up is the cake going to get me? You know what I mean? And then I inevitably get up to like 178, and then I start to process over. So my weight stays regulated at about 175, right? So because I get comfortable, I'm okay. I'm like, okay, that's just, I think, what happens. It doesn't mean it has to, but I do think that there's a point to it. Not that it's some kind of, again, iron law, but I do think so.
A lot of people, they don't think that they have to pay attention because they think a lot of things aren't going to affect them because they only look at this and not all of the consequences that this is going to have.
Okay, so let me tell you what happened. Aside from that, I will tell you a funny story. So I was out with my friend Friday. Been friends for, 60 years or so. 60 years. I'm not even 60 yet, but more than 40 years I've known him. Oh, look at this. 100, whatever these are, checks, 100 checks. Is there any way this war in Iran could play out without U.S. assets and life, excepting for foreign aid already or usually given, e.g. Israel, Gulf State Kurds, that you would find moral? I could find it moral for the United States to get involved. The problem I have here is, one, it's unconstitutional, so I don't support unconstitutional wars. The second thing is I don't trust Trump to tell me the truth about anything. So with that, I would have liked to have heard the case made. Let Congress vote on it. What's the case? What's the plan? So I separate two things. One, justice. The Iranian regime deserves to be removed, killed, whatever. So we could put that over here. But just because it would be just to do something, just because somebody deserved something, I'm going to get to that, Jason. I know what you asked about. But just because somebody deserved it doesn't mean it's our interest to do it. And not in all cases. So I could support that. So now you ask me if I would support this type of thing. But the same considerations would come up for me. Okay, what is the benefit to the United States of doing this? Would I support it? And it's all contingent on that. Does it benefit us? Is it good for us to do? But in order for me to know that, I would have to be able to trust the people making the case. And right now, nobody's making the case. Trump just says, yes, we have to do it, despite his own intelligence. Not his intelligence. I mean, the intelligence apparatus. So I don't, to answer your question, I mean, I could say, yes, I could find it moral, but I would need to know why it's being done, how it's going to be done, and have the case made that it's in the interest of the United States.
It's two separate things, right?
Yes. Oh, hold on one second. I want to get to something before you get into it, Persephone. I don't think foreign aid is legitimate, so I wouldn't support giving money to Israel, but you could still do that. I don't like foreign aid either when it's just given, what's the word I'm looking for here? Without limits and without purpose. Just here's foreign aid to this country, to this country, to this country.
Willy-nilly.
Willy-nilly, we'll go with a scientific term. But I could support it under limited conditions. Like, for instance, if it saves the United States from having to go to war, if we could fund an ally that could take an enemy country out, I could see supporting it. But we don't have any of that right now. We have garbage. So you go ahead, Persephone. I'm sorry.
I was basically just going to say a lot of people collapse the two. Is the war moral? And is the war moral for the United States to carry out? And they sort of collapse the two. They go, it's justice. Therefore, the question, is it moral? They're not taking the America angle into account when they ask that question.
Most people don't. Jason is, to be fair. When Jason asked a question, he's asking from the same moral standpoint that I'm coming from. And it all boils down to whether it's in our interest to do. Oh, I wanted to tell my story before we go. So I was out last week, or not last week. Well, yeah, I guess it is technically Friday with my friend I've been friends with since we were little kids. And we got to arguing about Bob Backlund, the wrestler. Bob Backlund was a professional wrestler, champion, but it could be a slippery slope, Akira Felix. I agree. In this case, though, in the case of Ukraine, I don't think that it's in our interest to be giving them money. But either way, let's back up a little bit. But you make a good point. Okay, so he says that Bob Backlund taught at St. Augustine School, or rather was a gym teacher of some sort at St. Augustine School. And I looked it up, and I could only find Rocky Hill and I forgot the other one, Bacon Academy. So he insisted on this. So when I got home, he sends me this picture of Bob Backlund in a purple St. Augustine's jacket. And I said, that's AI. So then I sent him a picture of me in the same jacket, in the same place. And then I had the idea for a bunch of my friends. I took a picture of me in a swimming pool with my top off, and I superimposed it onto a bunch of my friends.
As one does.
Yeah, and I thought it was fun. It was, it was a good time had by all.
It is very funny. I'm very sad that I can't post it anyway.
It is. But Akira Felix makes a good point. That is the reasoning for giving money to Ukraine. Generally speaking, I'm not for it. But here's the problem. Generally speaking, I mean, realistically, I'm not for any kind of taxation. If the country were not funded by theft, then I'd be more apt to support limited, what's the word I'm looking for here? Limited funding for other countries if they're fighting a battle and it saves us from fighting. Steve Has Game says moral implies an action. A person can take action. The only way the war could be moral is if the person executing the war followed the Constitution to get full buy-in from the American people. Reps, I'm very sympathetic to that point of view. Steve Has Game. Thank you for the comment. Okay, I'm out of things to talk about. It's a little early, but I think I've given it a good go here today. So I'm going to give a very, 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 very brief today. Can you go look at the page to find out the answers to the question from the other day so I don't have to do it? Thanks. My capitalist thought for the day is simple. Don't trust the government. Don't trust the government when it comes to the economy. Don't trust the government when it comes to war. Don't trust what they say. Don't believe what they tell you they're going to do. Always be skeptical of them. No, I'm not saying governments are necessarily evil. We need government. We need objective law. But the only way that we can ever get that is if we hold these people accountable. And we cannot hold them accountable if we just buy every line of bullshit that they sell. All right, what do you got, Persephone?
So your question on Friday was, what movie should you watch?
Oh, yeah, what did we get? I saw some decent ones. Silence of the Lambs I've seen a million times. That was one of them.
Silence of the Lambs. Jenna Kleem says 1408, which I second. Great movie. Ian Gilmore says the 1987 movie No Way Out. Avoid spoilers.
Too.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen it, and yes, avoid spoilers.
Reyes Jacobson says a cult classic called 3.
Haven't heard of it. I might have to give that one a shot.
And Jenna Kleem also says Of Unknown Origin.
All right. Thank everybody for that. Now, Persephone, asked them a question.
Oh, no.
That's it?
If you, audience, here's my question. If you were in my shoes, what question would you have asked at the end of this episode?
No, no. I got a question. I got a better question. That's a terrible question. No, I'm not asking that question. You've really phoned it in today, Persephone. You really did. You're wonderful. Is that the middle finger from South Africa when you do that one?
No.
All right. The question is this. Is there anybody from the current United States government that you trust? If so, who? Is there anybody from the current American government that you trust? Do you trust Persephone not to have her phone on so we have to listen to the dinging? No, we love Persephone. Persephone's awesome. I hope everybody knows I'm just kidding. Persephone is the lifeblood of the program and the other program and the weekend program. But yeah, is there a government employee or is there an elected politician that you trust? That's my question. So please answer. Please like, share, and subscribe. And please go check us out today, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time for Everyday Ethics, where I hope Persephone is better prepared than she was for this show. Until tomorrow, folks, check your premises.